Observations, Righteous Discussions, Unite People. It's the Word Up Podcast, and I am your host, OMNIETC. I'm me, etc. Today we're going to be talking about I'm going to say the average man's problem, or most men's problem, with feminine leadership. To be clear, it's not my problem with feminine leadership. I don't have a problem with the right feminine leadership, but we're talking from a general perspective. As such, the title of today's episode is The General Sucks D. All right, bear with me. It's going to be a long one, and we're going to get to it. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, as well as the like for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps out the channel. And not doing so is a symptom of micropenis. I would consult your physician today. All right, so enough of the housekeeping. Let's get into the topic. The General Sucks D. So while I was doing what I do in real life, because YouTube is a place on the internet and life goes on outside of it, a lot of us like to forget that fact. Nevertheless, it's true. The discussion came about of, I don't even want to say leadership, because that's not where the discussion started. But the discussion that was had was very leadership oriented, because we're talking about the ability to run one's household effectively, the ability to provide, protect. These times are hard. It's difficult all around, which is why in times that are hard, I don't suggest anyone falter, give up anything that they got going for themselves. If anything, I suggest you double your efforts at times like this. That's my perspective. Some people may find it to be toxic. Times get hard, you go harder. That's what I think. Bills need to be paid. Households need to be maintained. So, with that said, Ebony K. Williams, this sister right here, okay? Ebony K. Williams had a discussion with Iyanla Vanzant, however she pronounces it. No disrespect to Ms. Vanzant at all. I agree with a good portion of what Iyanla said. However, I also agree with what Ebony K said. Okay. I believe that Iyanla found herself to be too harsh, too quote-unquote masculine. But really, it's a discussion about trauma and how women experience trauma and what they do as a result of trauma. That's what that discussion was for me. Because, I mean, when it comes to women and what they are in the world today, they have two options. Well, no, they don't just have two options. They have several options. But the two that seem for them to gravitate to, right, is either take on a victimhood or to take on a more domineering role in society. So those seem to be the two most prevalent facets of femininity. Let's call it that today. I mean, the people that are around me, they have a hard time to get me to sit still when I need to sit still, when I'm sick, when I'm hurt, you know. And that's because within me is a spirit of perseverance. And in a lot of these women, they want to persevere. The problem with their perseverance and why it comes off toxic is because what they go through is so ingrained in them that there's not an off switch. There's not a time for them to tone it down. There's not, they're always on go. It seems like. So, Ebony K had a discussion with Ayana, and then she later had a discussion with DJ Envy, a man who's cheated on his wife. We're laying it all out on the table because we want to talk about the mentality, right, of where these people are coming from. This man cheated on his wife, and he had to beg for forgiveness on air in order to win her back, keep her from divorcing him. All of this was public information. It's also public record is that Ebony has a white husband. It seems to shake up a lot of people and stir up a lot of things. For me, it doesn't. I could care less what her husband looks like. I'm gonna be honest. Something that Kevin Samuels once said struck a chord with me. When he, not necessarily even on his show, but when he was on Fresh and Fit, it's winners and losers. And that's it. We could talk about race, we could talk about nationality, we could talk about culture and creed. But at the end of the day, somebody loses, somebody wins. What Ebony was talking about was winning. She was in the discussion with on her Breakfast Club interview. She was talking about, listen, we all own homes. When it's time to cut a tree, it's $5,000 just for them to turn on the machine. I think they're talking about the wood chipper. I don't own a home, so I don't know, but that's one of those hidden costs. I tell people all the time, you're only looking at what your mortgage is, and you're only looking at what you have to pay every month, what your down payment is, and what your mortgage is. And most people only plan for that, and a lot of people only have it in their budget and have only budgeted for what the mortgage is when they factor in house costs versus their income. However, the reason why I rent, and I will for, at this point, I'm going to say probably 5 more years. God willing, I hope not sooner, but 5 more years, is, well, I hope I'll be done sooner, I should say. But 5 more years, maximum. Is because I'm always looking at ways to increase my income. And the reason why is in-home ownership, unlike renting. Going from renting to home ownership is an interesting dynamic that I've had to analyze and actually look at. Because I had the down payment. I had, what they say that you need in order to start looking at properties and seriously with the intent to purchase and start investing. And not really so much investing, because buying yourself a home isn't really an investment. Some people think it is, but it's not the investment that you think it is. So now that I'm renting, anything that breaks down in my apartment is the responsibility of my landlord to fix. Save my washer and dryer that I purchased myself. Currently, I'm using their stove, their refrigerator, their HVAC, their plumbing. However, when you go into home ownership and you have a mortgage to pay every month, unlike renting, all of those costs are now your responsibility. Anything that breaks down in the home, you are now responsible to repair. And in some cases, if you don't repair it, the city gets involved, and depending on the extent of the damage and, zoning regulations and code, so I say that to say I didn't really see her talking down on people. I didn't take it offensive as an average black man. I didn't take it offensively. And I typically don't take it offensively when women exercise their choice to choose other men. I find it very strange that we are in such a sensitive civilization, a sensitive society, and the reason I bring this up is because I don't think that she's the problem. Not this woman specifically. I don't think this woman specifically is the problem. Or should I say this archetype, this type of woman is specifically the problem. I believe that there is a certain type of woman that is the problem. And the reason why I believe that is because women are the first teachers. They're the primary caregiver to children. And we've had a lot of women for an extended period of time raise children on their own. Now, when I say we've had, a lot of these women do this by choice. A lot of women have done this by choice. Okay. Woman breaks up with a man, they're not married, they have a child together. Usually the children default to the woman. And if the child doesn't default to the woman, it's a substantially poor in character, woman of poor character. I'll say it that way. So we have women that have been raising children for an extended period of time by themselves. Of course, in children, you have boys and girls, but let's talk about the boys. Boys are made to move around. Boys need to develop into the men that are going to benefit society. They can't do that. They will never do that if all they know is how to follow women? When you're raised by a single mother, all you know as a boy growing up is how to let a woman lead. That's the dynamic that you've had to be up under for an extended period of time. Especially if you're sheltered, you're kept away from your uncles, male cousins, anybody that could be a male role model to you. That is the dynamic that you grow up with. And in that dynamic, when you come of age, you are unfit to lead. Because all you know is how to follow what women do. And I think it's specifically those males that had a problem with what she said. Now, that said, I grew up under my mother, but I did have my father early on in life. But for the most crucial points of my development, I was with my mother. And sometimes it was hell. I'm not gonna lie, it was hell. Just because of the nature of women. They have a fanciful nature. They think in terms of fantasy, the ideal, what they would like things to be. And they tend to ignore what it actually is. And with a male logical brain, you can't help but see it for what it is. But you'll constantly be gaslighted into the fantasy, the ideal, if it can be called that. But back to Ebony K. Williams and the general crux, the real crux of this discussion tonight. The reason why most men have a problem with feminine leadership is because for men, all right, for men, at some point you understand that your leadership as a masculine male begins at death. Where true leadership begins is at death. In most cases, let me say a vast majority of cases. If two men are going head to head on anything, conversation gets heated, and then competition comes into play, one man doesn't believe that the other man really wants it unless he's finna die by it. When we take it there, to the place where we have no relatives, no backup, no assistance, nobody really believes that a man is about what he says he's about unless he's prepared to die for it. Hey, bro, that's your girl? The other dude start fucking with his girl just to, you know what I'm saying? If that man don't do nothing, that's not his girl. The moment that another male challenges your ownership, your claim over that which you have, it's a very primal thing with men. This is why we have laws and documentation and all of that to see who really has claim over stuff. Because if we didn't have that, we'd just be killing each other for territory, land, ownership, resources all over the place. Like it's the Wild Wild West. It's how the Wild Wild West was. Well, even in those times, they had deeds to property, right? But that system came up because men, I'm not going to say black or white, that's not what this is. At least not this episode. Men will kill each other if there's no pre-established order. Men will kill each other over the basic necessities: food, clothing, and shelter. Well, you get to survive out here, but I feel as though I'm stronger than you, and I'm suffering? No, you're gonna have to come up off that. Take away every comfort in society. That's what we devolve into. That's what it is. So when it comes, again, to reiterate the main point that I'm trying to stress here, when it comes to male leadership at its base level, it begins with being prepared to die over that which you exercise authority over and claim responsibility for. At the base level, take away all of our social comforts. What's going to happen? And I'm really stressing this to stress why the title is what it is. The General Sucks D. What happens? What happens, and why is the title that? Well, before we get into that, let's talk about the movie Troy. You know, Achilles, the Great Trojan War, giant wooden horses, soldiers hiding in them. But before they even got to that part of the movie, there's a part of the movie where Brad Pitt is nowhere to be found. The king challenges the other army. This is before they get to Troy. There's another army, I forget. But the king Agamemnon, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but the king over the army that was conquering territories, land, claiming resources for him and his people. Achilles was nowhere to be found, Brad Pitt's character. Agamemnon challenged the other one, the other general or the other king, whoever was in command of the other army soldiers, right? To single combat, champion warfare. Thousands of lives spared, save for two individuals in opposition of each other, fighting for the claim and the right to rule the other side. At least their king too. Sometimes it's the actual commander of the army or the general. Other times it's a chosen champion. Achilles on this day was that champion. Anyway, Achilles shows up, starts running, dudes throwing spears. Achilles running up, not breaking his stride. Sword straight through the clavicle bone. Definitely shredded an artery, likely punctured lungs. He's down. This big giant, he's down. But that's not That's not the part that I'm stressing here. Single combat, two men going head to head to spare the lives of thousands. Thousands of men spared. One life taken. Thousands of lives saved. The leadership of men begins at death. For our abject lesson, I do have a. Okay. I do have something that we can view. I got a clip prepared. Let's go over here. This is this is a short rather from Game of Thrones. And let's see if you can see what you can glean from this clip. See what your takeaway is, rather.
Let's end this the old way. You against me.
I keep hearing stories about you, bastard. The way people in the North talk about you, you're the greatest swordsman who ever walked. Maybe you are that good. Maybe not. I don't know if I'd beat you, but I know that my army will beat yours. I have 6,000 men. You have, what? Half that? Not even?
Aye, you have the numbers. Will your men want to fight for you when they hear you wouldn't fight for them?
He's good. Very good.
Old buddy. Old buddy was upset. It's like, why should? So, Jon Snow, about that action, commander of that army at the time. It's like, look, let's spare our men's lives. And let me run the ones with you. Shoot the fair one. Only our swords need to clash. What was old buddy's retort? Why should I fight you? I have a greater army than yours. Fair enough, fair enough. But even though you have a greater army than yours, you're going to suffer casualties. No one makes it away from a battle unscathed. Jon Snow's counter? Would your men want to fight for you when they hear you wouldn't fight for them? The answer in most cases is no. In most cases, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say 9.9 times out of 10, no man is going to fight for a leader that wouldn't fight for them when the chips are down, when shit gets thick, when it hits the fan, when it all comes down and it gets as real as it possibly can get. No man is going to put his life on the line for a general that wouldn't do the same for him. And this is what brings me to the point, the climax of this episode. When it comes to leadership, as I said, masculine leadership starts at death. And the reason why men in general have a problem being led by women in general is because women have a sexual out to spare themselves. Women can, at any given moment, play victim and offer up their bodies to avoid real world consequences, to avoid the consequences for their actions, their decisions. They can suck D. How would you feel as a general? You fought a long, hard campaign. Well, not as a general, but as a soldier in an army, in a grand army that has fought a long, hard campaign. You've lost friends, colleagues, possibly family members that fought side by side with you for an extended period of time, only to find out when the chips were down and the general was put in a predicament where it was die or take this deal, but give me some head. Tell me it didn't happen. It happens today. You can't tell me. It's happened today. You can't tell me that it doesn't happen, that it didn't happen in times of old. In times of old, women weren't typically allowed to lead in most cases. In most cases. So, the sentiment of most men is that I can't follow a leader that's going to suck dick through a situation where I would have to lay down my life. I mean, again, how would you feel as a soldier knowing that after all of your fighting, after all of your losses, after all of your scars, after all of the promises, after all of the fanfare, you found the general on his knees, sir. You found your general on their knees servicing the enemy. Betraying the covenant of you and your brethren to save themselves. And you can't tell me that that would never happen. It'd be hard pressed to tell any man that's never happened. With what we see out here nowadays, nowadays they throwing their they throwing it back on IG just for views and likes. So as a man, is it reasonable for men to avoid a situation where they foresee it not being in their own best interest? I'm gonna go out into war with you. I'm going to ride for you. I'm going to say your name. I'm going to scream it at the top of my lungs. I am going to serve you as the best soldier as I possibly can, and you suck dick. You give the other side head. You sell your body in exchange for you living and the rest of us dying. You can't tell me that it won't happen. Nowadays, they do it for money. You think they wouldn't do it if their life was at stake? You can't tell men that. Once again, I don't have a problem. Because this sister doesn't strike me as that type. This sister strikes me as the type that will work fingers to the bone to avoid even having to be in that situation in the first place. So I could follow Ebony K. Williams if need be. I could follow a sister that actually is thinking of, the big picture, which she seems to be thinking of the big picture. But when it comes to individuals like what most males are following nowadays, as far as women, why? They can only lead you down a path of destruction. They don't actually have a plan past this. All they know is, I'm gonna throw this ass, I'm gonna get some cash. And that's the reason why men are reluctant or hesitant to follow women, because there's always a sexual out, even in her case. That's the thing that makes most men fearful. Because even in her case, I'm not saying the option for her to do so isn't there. Oh, it's there. Oh, it's there. She could do it at any point in time. But I think she has such a respect level for herself that it would take quite a lot for her to do something like that. That's how she comes off. Kamala Harris, not so much. But Ebony K. Williams, I'd be hard pressed to see her doing so. I would be shocked for Ebony K. Williams to be out here laying her box on the table for a business deal. Or as Steffes Cole would say, sweet watery guts, for a business transaction. I'd be hard pressed to see that in her. But what's required of men is that we provide, protect, even if under the threat of death or penalty of death. And I'm not talking about legally, I'm talking about from a societal standpoint, from what women ask of men. Provide, protect. It's not that hard. Of course it's not that hard if you're throwing it back on the gram. You got a round thing and you throwing it back on the gram, you're gonna get them dollars. But we only got these, man. And we have to work our fingers to the bone in order to get the things that we want, and to provide for you on top of it. So I'm sorry, as a man, I can't see myself following any individual that's going to suck dick out of a situation that I am required to die in. Worry observations, righteous discussions unite people. It's the Word Up Podcast. I'm your host, Omni, etc. Get with me in the comments. Let me know what you think about this topic. I really want to hear your opinion on the matter. Like, am I off? If I'm off, I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong. But that's my take on the situation. Most men have a problem with female leadership because it's always implied that they can exchange sexual favors to get their way or to get out of a bad decision that they themselves have probably made, or a situation that a man would have to die in. Like I said, let me know in the comments. This is a discussion. This isn't just my opinion. It's a Word Up Podcast. Till next time, peace.